Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Shortcut podcast. Your shortcut through developer experience, developer productivity, and product engineering. My name is Morten.
And I'm Marilag. And today we have a special guest, Casper Jensen is joining us today. And we're going to talk about, the journey Pandora is taking around developer experience, developer productivity, and then how is it with your app innovation at Pandora? So
And then maybe a little bit perspective from enterprise architecture and also developer experience or productivity.
So thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, can you tell our audience a little bit about your role at Pandora?
Yeah, and maybe about what Pandora is.
Yeah.
I think 9 out of 10 women know the brand Pandora. So it's a jewelry company. We are the largest manufacturer of jewelries in the world. We do more than 100 million pieces every year. We sell 3 jewelries every second, so
Wow.
quite a few doing this podcast. And we are located in 100 plus countries. There's, of course, a lot of tech involved in that. When you have 6,000 point of sales, you have factories, supply chain, and then all the usual HR, finance, legal stuff, and so on. So we have engineers and tech in every corner.
Can you tell us a little bit how the organization looks like? Now you mentioned the tech organization, and what's your role in it as an enterprise architect?
Yeah, so we are, I think, like many other modern tech organizations, we have adopted a product-led concept where we have some business domains, so that could be finance, manufacturing, supply chain, tech, and so on. And then we are organized in product teams in various groupings under that. We are spread across the globe. We're here in Copenhagen, where the headquarters is. We are in Thailand, where our manufacturing mainly is. In Warsaw and in London.
So you mentioned product-led organization. Has it always been like that, or is that a new concept?
It is. It's a new thing. Like, I joined a year ago. Maybe it's like 3 years ago that I started that journey, moving from project-led to product-led is a change. I think in any organizations. I've also been through it at my previous company at Maersk. Also been through that. It is a change from delivering a project to this motion of delivering a continuous incremental value. It's a mindset change, but I feel it's definitely worth it.
Can you tell us a little bit how this product team looks like in Pandora? I know that there is kind of a commonality between organizations right now adopting this product-led tech organization, but maybe is there something that Pandora is doing differently? Or
when you stand up a product team, you have to figure out like the basics of, so who are your customers? Internal, like other product teams. Externally facing the business stakeholders, maybe your customers are end consumers or craftsmen in the factory. Or who are your users, the customers, and then what is the product you are delivering? So which we talk a lot about, like business capabilities. What do you actually provide in that sense? So we have a big business capability map. So this is where the enterprise part comes in a bit, where you structure business capabilities, and they call them like L1, 2, 3 levels. So you will have manufacturing, and inside manufacturing you will have sourcing. So buying, in our case, gold and silver and so on. And in sourcing, you will have something about contract management and other things. And then you'll have a product, and a product may deliver 1, 2, 3, 4 business capabilities. Need to be clear on that. Be clear on is it everyone? If it's manufacturing, it may be given it's for the factories.
I'm curious about the scale of things in terms of developers. Because now you talked about the size of the company and how much you're selling. So it sounds like you have quite a big global footprint and a lot of stuff is going on. I guess especially around certain dates around the year. But in terms of developers, how many developers do you have at Pandora? How many are working in these product teams?
Yeah. So I would say depends 200 to 300. If you count like a hands-on keyboard doing things, then we have a huge organization next to that to keep all the operational stuff working. When you have 13,000 craftsmen in a factory, then you need some tech around that. You operate 6,000 stores. You need someone to go and change the switch, and you also have 6,000 times 2 internet connection and providers to keep track of, 2 for every store, right? So,
and
there's a lot.
What about in terms of developer experience? Where are you in your journey? Because like 200 to 300 developers, that's a lot. So I can imagine they're potentially doing a lot of the same things. So are you doing anything in regards to developer experience?
Yeah, it's a new thing for us. So focusing on developer experience has always been there, but put it in the front seat is a thing that we're working on now. We've also went from being very outsourced and vendor-led into taking more stuff in-house, which also puts a demand for self-service systems and platforms, teams that can scale and help the stream-aligned teams delivering their features and so on.
From an enterprise perspective, like when you are selecting, just as an example, maybe if you're selecting an integration platform, do you have any considerations for developer experience? Or do you take any considerations what it means for developer, either in terms of productivity or the experience that they will be facing when you introduce a new system, or do it like enterprise-wide?
Yeah. So we talk about a lot about this. You call it the outer shell and the inner core of a product. We sell charms is one of our main products. If we come back to like the jewelries, right? Yeah. You have a charms carrier, so that could be a bracelet, and then you click on these charms. All right. There's freedom. The designers, the product owners, they have freedom to develop a Spider-Man charm, or a Batman charm, a Disney charm, or whatever they want. But there are some hard rules when it comes to the integration with the bracelet itself, right? It needs to click on, it needs to have a certain interface it must follow, right? Otherwise, you cannot pick and choose and everything fits nicely together, right? So if we go to the software products, right? Inside your product, you can pick and choose. What do you want a SaaS product? Do you want to develop? Are we in Node.js and Go and C# or whatever, SAP or what have you? Salesforce is also a big thing. You can sort of pick and choose there. But then when you talk about the outer shell, that's where you expose yourself to the rest of the organization, right? And that's where if you make a change there, then others will be affected. If you make a change in the inner core, no one really cares. But when you make foundational changes to this outer shell, then you need alignment. And that is where classically EA comes in. So there's a lot of collaboration needed to figure out what is the best tool to do the job. Can we live with one? Do we need two? And so on. If we pick a very specific vendor tool, then it may fit one part of the organization, but it will actually be a burden to the rest, right? So there's some, you can say, some common industry standards, an API gateway with REST and JSON. Everyone knows that, right? So that's fine. When you come to the data area, are we then talking about, event streaming? Are we talking Parquet files and data lakes? And so then it becomes a little bit more blurry. What I put a lot of emphasis on is that it has to be technology where there's more than one vendor. A lot of time we talk about vendor lock-in and so on, right? So if you have, and it's always a balance, right? That's the thing with architecture in general. It's a WIC problem. So which means that there's no right or wrong solution, and there's not a definite solution. So the solution will always change over time. So you cannot just say, we'll go with A and then we'll stick with A, right? It's a problem that always evolves. So has the architecture landscape also. So when we pick tools, it's an example could be, very common thing is to say, we'll go with Kafka for event streaming. Okay. For now, we'll log ourselves down to a SaaS provider. Many uses Confluent Cloud. All right, we'll pick that. But we know because we have picked an open source protocol, Kafka, and we always have the option to go with a competitor if we somehow figure out that Confluent is too expensive or they go in a different direction than we want, or our requirements changes and we need to be on-premise, for instance.
Yeah.
If we need all of a sudden, we get a big adoption of Kafka in our ecosystem, and now our factories come to, we want Kafka. Okay, then we must be able to bring it on-prem into the factory, right? Do it ourselves if we want to. So always look for these, you can say, escape routes. You can pick an API gateway, stick with the SaaS vendor, but you know that you can always get out, right? That's some of the...
kind of a core principle for picking
and
for making
choosing,
decisions.
right?
Yeah.
It's not just IT, it's like in general, if you go with one vendor, right, then you have one to negotiate with.
Do the developers or the product teams have a say on this? And do you have a very specific mechanism to get feedback from these product teams that feeds into this decision-making process?
So we have a strong engineering community. They, of course, raise their voice. A lot of the times we are still learning how to balance demand from various domains, because when you pick these central tools or central patterns to adopt, then it will always come with an upside for some and a downside from others. But when you add it all up, it should be a upside for the company, right? And that's always a challenging discussion, because there are deadlines and there are budgets in each and every domain. And if you say 3 of the domains, they will accelerate, but you will need to put an extra effort in, then the natural question is, where should that budget come from, right?
Yeah.
And it's not like the other domains, they will give away, so to say, their budget to fix this. And so that's some of the tougher conversations, right? That needs to happen in sometimes a not so, you can say, engineering-led discussion forum, where our engineering community, they come with recommendations like, we would really love to adopt this. We can see it will help us deliver this and this against our strategy. It means that these changes has to happen, and it needs to be anchored in the organization.
Talking about your engineering community, do you have anything in particular where you say this is currently some of the main challenges for them? It can be either in regards to developer experience or productivity.
A challenge that I guess you see many places is when you have this mix of internal and external engineers. So it's easier to get internal engineers to spend a day on whatever thing that would be good in the community. It may be less optimal to use consultancy hours to get an opinion on something where they actually have a statement on work to deliver a feature, right? But nevertheless, they're a big part of the engineering community. You want your consultants to feel included, and many times they bring in knowledge from a lot of other clients which you can gain from. But on the other hand, you have most likely signed a statement of work to deliver this feature and not be a part of the engineering community per se, right? It takes also some courage from the engineering managers, and so to say that, all right, this is actually important that you go to these community meetings instead of just delivering features, right? And when deadlines are tight and all that stuff, then that's the first thing that gets pulled away, right?
That's a very good perspective. And what about the things that you think you're doing right with this? Because you mentioned it's a very strong engineering community, so you must have done something really good, and maybe other organizations can copy that because they're also in their journey of, building or starting this community-driven approach to engineering.
When you have a company that spans manufacturing, supply chain, retail, then you work with 1,000 technologies, right? Because it's one thing in manufacturing, right? OT and so on, operational technology, and retail and marketing is a totally different beast, right? So there are many different technologies in there. And one of the things that we have seen is that we'll never be able to align on a single technology, right? And I think in an EA context, the easiest thing to draw up, right, is a diagram with one box, right? All do C#, everything. It's so easy. People can just move from project to project, right? But that's not the reality, right? So you have to embrace the diversity, and also in the engineering community you have, and know that it is very different. And especially when we start talking about integrations, you can sit on one side and say, why is it so difficult for you to ingest this Kafka topic or get this data from the data lake? But if you haven't been on the other side and seen, all right, this system is just not built for that type of integration, or it can do that, but it takes a lot of effort, then you don't understand it. So what I encourage many of the engineers to do is simply to try and cross that bridge, right? In my team, we have principal engineers who works in the various domains, helping out the teams on architectural topics, but also say, all right, this team is really struggling with this integration technology. Jump into that team. Understand why it is a big thing for them. Contribute with some code. I know you're not a .NET developer. You have used Java all your time. So try to understand it. Try to contribute and see why it is so difficult. Maybe you have some knowledge from the Java world that you can apply there. So when it comes to this engineering culture, I really encourage teams to go into each other's backlogs saying, I need you to integrate with my system. Can I help you? Instead of saying, here's the spec, whatever, do that, right? And can I do the first round of it in your team, contribute, you will review and own the code afterward, but I would like to help you get started, right? Do that. So that's like, you can say, going and contributing to other teams' backlog. I also put personal goals and some of my engineers to say, just don't do it for another team in the organization. Also, go do it on an open source product, right? We use Kafka, right, and Confluent, and we use some other tools and say, all right, take a challenge and contribute. Maybe it's just updating that documentation thing that you found difficult, right? But understand how another team works. It's very different from maybe the waterfall approach that you have in your ERP system. So, but just learning that also helps a lot of these conflicts, debates that can be between teams. Why don't you just do that?
Well, I was wondering if are you doing anything to make it easier for developers to get started, either like coming in fresh as new hire, coming into a team, or switching between teams, or just the discoverability of seeing like we have this product, it's exposed, it's easy to discover for other teams, so they can go in and contribute to their code base.
Yeah. So it's a two-stage rocket at the moment, where the first part that we are in now is the discoverability. What product teams do we have? What are they delivering? Where's their source code? What technologies are they using? That's what we are mapping now. And then there's the next part, also because we have large portion of external consultants coming in. It's getting that, getting from 0 to first commit, or whatever you would call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Depends on the system you're using. But how do we propel that, right? How do you get your development environment up and running?
Yeah.
Right? And it's where it's very different from team to team. So we have, if you are in Salesforce and it's a SaaS product, you log in, right? Click around, you're up and running, so to say, right? Keep it very simplistic. If you are in the Java or Node.js, more classical engineering spaces, do you have a dev container you can spin up? Do you have a list of the dependencies you need on your machine or whatever things, right? And then there are others where we say, all right, you need a dev PC. So we have process to spin up a development VM in Citrix or whatever that you get, and you work on that and it's set up. And if you don't have those formal guidelines on how to jump into a project, then it also becomes difficult to just go in and help.
Is that up to the teams themselves to ensure that this, like if they're bringing on a new developer, is it up to the team, or did they get more help from a, let's say, more horizontal or global perspective, company perspective?
So like the developer machine as a service is out of our virtual machine team that helps with that. If you're a small team configuring a SaaS product or so, then it's no more than a Confluent page.
Yeah.
And then it really depends on the size of the team. If there's a need to have a formal procedure, what is the churn in your team? And it's very much on a use case basis.
Yeah. Okay.
And so you mentioned that, you are starting with the journey of the discoverability, and then maybe picking a tool of putting this all together to help first with this process of onboarding and knowledge sharing between teams as well. Mm-hmm. Is there one pain point right now that you think you would like to solve first with this strategy?
I would say it's answering the question, where's the data? I want to build a new fancy marketing feature. I need a list of all stores. All right. Which country, where's the store, stuff like that. Is it open or not? A very simple piece of data. Simple, right? So just being able to go into a system, say, how do I get store data,
Mhm.
right? How do I get a list of products? Those kind of things. It sounds like a very easy question to answer, but there's a lot of things behind it, right? You need to know all your products, as said, what are the capabilities they provide, making sure that there's one product team that owns that capability so you don't end up with 2 lists of stores. And then getting that team to document, how do I get the data? Is it dumped every night in this storage bucket? Is there an API? Can I stream it from somewhere? I would say the format and protocol to get it is less relevant than the documentation and the openness on getting the data, right?
Mm.
So that's a big effort. Pandora has also grown a lot of franchisees and so on. So we also have a landscape like any other big company where there are multiple systems that does the same, maybe in different regions. And so there's like a natural consolidation, but just having the visibility to say, if I need to get stores in the US, I'll go to this system. Stores in Europe, I go to this system. It's not optimal, but it's way better than not having that knowledge. That's the big thing.
I can understand. And from your perspective, is this something that should be a responsibility of a central body, like a platform that takes care of all this cataloging of all data, or it should be shared or disparate? Like not just from from context of Pandora, but from your experience also from other organizations of different sizes.
You cannot have a single team that knows where everything is, right? So what usually happens is that you provide the infrastructure for discoverability and cataloging products and their APIs and so on. And then you leave it up to the product team to maintain that data. We use an open source tool called Backstage. It has that model filled in, so to say. So we drive the adoption of Backstage, and it's up to the individual teams to fill in the data. They do that, but by putting some special marker files in their Git repos. So we have a .pandora folder. If you put stuff in there, we will discover it and catalog it. So you could put in, for this repo, this is my whatever product, it has this API or it has these business capabilities or whatever, and you maintain that in your own repo. And then we scoop it up, stitch it together, and give this holistic view that you can then search and so on.
Since platforms is such a hot topic these days, I'm curious to hear, like, if you have any platform initiatives or initiative that you would like to get started.
So in the terms of platform engineering, we are starting on that. We have had some teams that, I think has done it before. It was called a platform engineering as a concept, and Gartner has now a formal definition of platform engineering. We have Backstage being the first one as that view into the platform organization. So we have some central capabilities. I think you see a lot of maturity in many companies like VMs. All right. That's not something that you spin up left, right, and center. It's usually there's some patching, antivirus done by a central team. So we have that. The next things that, and then we have the security services. So it could be a secure edge gateway, web application firewalls, and so on. Now we are looking more into the Kubernetes space. With any other technology, it needs to come from some kind of demand. So we let it We let it happen in the individual product team. So some spins up Kubernetes in retail and a little bit in data and supply chain. And then we see, all right, now we have a critical mass. We run it. It's maybe not as efficient as it could be because now we have, 50 clusters or so running 50 applications. Is that the best way of doing it? Probably not. But then we see, all right, now there's a critical mass. Let's see if we can consolidate, make one platform team that can then serve the stream-aligned teams, and then hopefully lowering the cost, upping the operational excellence, 24/7 ops, and security, and so on. So that's usually how we start it up. I think the alternative would be to not allow it in any teams and say, I'll go and ask for, I don't know how many millions to build a platform team and then hope for some customers to come along. I can assure that I'll not get that funding from my manager.
Yeah.
It is much easier to go and say, all right, they are spending $1 million here. Let's consolidate, right? It's a much easier use case to do.
Yeah. So like you could say, let normalization drive standardization.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's also going back to this product mindset at the end of it all, like having your first MVP and understanding the usage and the customers before you make this broad decision. Yeah.
And maybe it happens, that the technology you thought was the thing, right? It gets superseded by something else before you even have your first customer on, right? So I like doing the other way. It means that there will be a bit more sprawl in the technology landscape for a while. And that's okay. You can experiment and so on, and the cost will not probably be the best. But then if we see that this is actually something that sticks and other likes, and so...
It also sounds like you're really taking care of your stream-aligned teams in that they are able to experiment and try out things. Like if Kubernetes is for them, they're allowed to start it up. But then at some point down the line, they probably also get into a situation where they need to spend a lot of time on maintenance, and maybe they don't have as much time to spend on their product. And then at some point it becomes like, okay, maybe this is a thing we can centralize, and there are other teams that are also doing Kubernetes. So maybe we can pull that in and create a platform team based off of those needs. So the stream-aligned teams can do more or focus more of their time on products than running platforms, right?
It's usually how it starts, right? You have in our case, it could be a e-com team who wants to deliver a first-class e-com experience. And then they say, we need Kubernetes for that. And then all of a sudden, they start spending half of their time operating clusters in multi-regions for peak season loads and so on. And then all the focus actually goes away from the feature backlog. And that's where you see this also urge from them to take this, I don't know if you should call it a burden, but the responsibility away.
Now I'm going to ask the controversial question, right? So you say that the adoption drives maybe the standardization. When do you feel like when a mass adoption of technology has to stop? And how do you do that? Has it ever happened?
A mass adoption of...
Like when they started, using something that's probably trendy at the moment, and then it just started creating chaos. And then how do you handle, or how do you think organizations should handle that when it happens?
I mean, the AI wave is over, right? You can't have a bunch of AI, right? And, every single vendor that we engage with, right? Let it be Microsoft, Salesforce, Dell, Databricks, SAP, whatever you have, they can all do AI. Everyone can do it better than the others, right? And it's very special for them and so on, right? And we see a big push on that, right? And everyone can sprinkle some AI in their product and then they can do something, right? I think this happens in many organizations. So getting a grasp of what really drives impact and not, is a thing that we have actually an AI team in our data area that helps quantifying the use cases. Because there are definitely use cases out there, but which one are the best ones? Which one are like the ones that it's also best for our customers, and will it actually bring some value? Because there's a lot of AI hype, I would say, at the moment, and it's like that, the hype curve.
Mm-hmm.
It goes like that. I think compared to many other technologies, then AI is so approachable that it can be used in so many use cases where you see, all right, when Kubernetes was at its peak, right, everything can be containerized. And so, yeah, but it's really a techie thing. Right now with AI, it's a tech that is not just in the tech organization, right? You see it coming from all business sides, right? In HR, they can screen resumes, but should you do that? And, you can automate response to applicants, but should you do that? And so on, right? So now it comes from all angles. That's interesting.
And now you mentioned the big word AI. What are you doing? Are you doing anything with AI in terms to developer productivity?
Yes, we have. So in our little Backstage system, so as said, this is the place to know about products and the APIs and so on. We have a bot there that using it knows about all the products. We have also fed it with stuff that every engineer should read and follow, but never follows. And I'm, of course, talking about our security policies, our data policies, our engineering standards, our reference architectures, all that stuff that lives somewhere in Confluence or in SharePoint, whatever. But no one really, really reads it. I can write also my dumb questions, maybe that I don't want to bother other with. But you can ask it, I want to build a mobile app that lists products and can submit an order. What should I be aware of? Right. And then it will traverse all of this, and it will come back with you should engage with this person who owns the product line of retail. You can get the data from this, maybe not API, but then it at least know this team is in charge of product information. When you submit an order, there's a Kafka topic that has the order message. And if you're processing personal information like addresses, shipping addresses, and so on, then you must comply with these and these and do this audit and so on. Right. So it can do stuff like that. It's making my job a bit obsolete, in a sense. It is a co-pilot, right? You're still the pilot. You need to make the decisions and so on. But it can give some good pointers as who to talk to and what to be aware of. And there are many things when I test it, I say, oh, that's actually right. That, I put this in with building a mobile app for ordering, right? It also said, oh, I told it I need a product list and I need to submit an order. It also told me that there's an API for getting inventory. So what's the idea of presenting a list of jewelries if they are not in store and in stock, right? So it actually somehow, I don't know, and that's the magic of AI, deduced that probably inventory would be a good thing to bring into this. You know?
That's really cool. Sounds like a dream day for developers.
In wrapping up, one of the questions we usually ask for our guests is to provide some kind of shortcut for our listeners. So if you look back over the years, is there any shortcut that you can think of that when you start a journey again today, is there a shortcut that you could take to get closer to developer productivity or improving developer productivity?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So I think when I look back at my journey, 20 years in tech, so to say, right? I started out being very focused on a single piece of technology or a single ecosystem. I learned VB script back in the days, Visual Basic, C#, .NET thingy, and that was like my ecosystem. So every time I had to do something, I did it within this boundary. And I could most likely have done many of the things faster if I had expanded my scope early in my career, I would say. Because C# is not the best tool for everything. It is a general purpose language, I know, so it can do everything, but should it? Right? Yeah. So now I see that especially when we start talking about microservice architectures, you get a lot more freedom to have 10 microservices. 6 of them are the business logic in .NET. Then I need this thing on the side to handle API gateway. All right, that's written in Go, and this other thing is an open source project that I'll have to modify a bit. It was in Python, but okay, I can do that. So after broadening my scope like that, and I've done that through various projects, I can now, I'm now no longer like constrained to only looking at a solution that fits within .NET, for instance. Node.js is not my favorite thing, but I can pull in the project and I can actually understand the code and easily configure it, and I will be faster off than trying to find a maybe suboptimal project in .NET that I had to wiggle way more with to get working.
Yeah. All right. So your shortcut would be to expand the scope of your ecosystems or broaden your scope and learn more ecosystems, because that enables you to be more productive in specific areas.
Yeah, and not that fixed.
Yeah.
At some point, one project, one piece of technology will die, right? And if you've built your entire career on that, then you're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
Right? Or you have a big step to go to the next one, right?
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for that. And thanks for joining us today on the Shortcut podcast.
Well done.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for listening.